This was the last moment caught on CCTV of Megan Newton just moments before she was murdered. And you won't believe what happens next. In today's true crime story, we're covering Megan Newton, who was an 18-year-old girl from the United Kingdom in Stoke-on-Trent. Megan was an 18-year-old girl. She had blonde hair. She liked to go out a lot with her friends and drink, go out for brunches. She liked to chill with her friends a lot. And on this evening, on the 20th of April 2019, she was about to go out as she normally would. She worked in a fish and chip shop, so she worked up until late and then she finished her shift. She started getting ready to go out. You know, like I said, she always likes going out with her friends, so it seemed. So as any other normal night, it was the 20th of April 2019, and she decided that she'd finish her shift and go out on a night out. She was caught on CCTV getting home around about 11 PM, going in from her work shift, getting changed from a uniform into her going out clothes, and just after 11 PM, she left apartment, it seems, to go out on the night out. Now she went out, she went out with her friends, she went to a few bars, had a few drinks, really had a good night. Like I said, she really enjoys going out with her friends. Her friends had a good night with her, and she stayed out for quite a while, you know. She went out at 11 PM, well, she left around 10:45 PM, but she went out around 11, stayed out to early hours of the morning, and just kind of drank as most 18-year-olds do on nights out. Once she'd finished drinking, she obviously wanted to get home. Now this is where the story twists, because this is very disturbing, and this is where the story gets really deep. When she was in school, she knew a guy called Joseph Taylor, a long school friend from many years ago. And as she was leaving the nightclubs and the clubs and the bars, she went to a taxi rank to get in a taxi home, because she obviously had no lift, so she needs to get a taxi home. A normal procedure, it seems to be, for her after a night out. So she went to taxi rank and stood there waiting, when she bumped into Joseph Taylor, a friend from many years ago in school. They were good friends, and obviously they had a chat. They were both talking, they were both extremely drunk, and they were both talking in this taxi rank for a while, waiting for a taxi to come for them both to get home. So when Joseph was there and we're talking to Megan, apparently he was telling Megan about how angry his parents were going to be, because he was so drunk, he was so intoxicated, he had way much to drink, it was too late in the evening, and if he goes home now, he's probably going to get in a lot of trouble. You know, he's a teenager, he's drank too much, he's probably going to wake everyone up in the house. So he was telling Megan all his problems, you know, how he shouldn't be able to go home, and he's probably going to get told off. So Megan, with the kindness of her heart, basically said to Joseph, look, you can come back to mine, you know, you can stay at mine, let the drink wear off, sober up, and get up in the morning, go home, and just tell your mum and dad that you stayed at a friend's house and you fell asleep and forgot to tell them. That was the plan. So Joseph was very appreciative of this. There's a CCTV footage of them both getting in a taxi together, as you can see here. And they went back to Megan's house. Again, they were long school friends. Nothing other than that, nothing like romantically. It was just literally friends helping out friends. So they got a taxi and headed back to Megan's place. So it seems that a taxi got back around about 4 AM. There's a CCTV footage here of them getting out the taxi and heading back towards Megan's flat at around 4 AM. So they had a good night. Megan's been out for a few hours. Joseph's been out for a very long time too. And they're going back to Megan's house, as you can see in the CCTV, so they can just go to sleep, wear it off, and that was that. Their apartment complex had CCTV, and this is the footage right here of them walking in through the apartment to Megan's room. And this CCTV footage was the last video ever seen of Megan. After these two individuals walked through that door, Megan was never seen ever again, and she was about to be brutally murdered in the most disturbing, disgusting way. At 5:54 AM, there's a video here of Joseph leaving Megan's room without Megan. He was leaving her apartment with keys that were her keys, not his keys, and he was walking out, caught on CCTV around 5:54 AM, and he went outside and basically threw the key, Megan's key, just in the yard, just threw it away, kind of where she lives. He didn't even try and hide the key. He just threw the key kind of as he walked out, almost like kind of weirdly, like he didn't care. I don't. No one really knows. It's kind of weird. He just threw the key and walked off. Like, if you murder somebody, people try normally and hide the key or take the key with them. He just left the key kind of where he was. Very strange, and he was caught on CCTV doing that too. Now, police, obviously after this all came out, looked through CCTVs as well, and they found this video where Joseph Trevor was seen to be walking down the road, and he was looking at his hand, almost like a sign of guilt. You can see here, he was caught on CCTV just basically looking at his hands, and on his hand you can see blood. So he seems like he's either panicking or he's just making sure there's nothing on his hands, which there clearly is. So at this point, he's trying to go home. He's just committed a massive murder, and his mind, what was going through his mind right now is unknown, but he's just killed one of his best friends from school, murdered her, and he's just left the body there, threw the key away, and just walking home. A few hours later in the day, a neighbor was walking around Megan's apartment, especially outside, and they found a key on the floor. The key had loads of blood stains all over the key. So this neighbor rang the police straight away. They tried locating why the key was on the floor, and as you guys remember, Joseph threw a key on the floor. It turned out to be obviously Megan's key, and on the key was loads of blood on it. So the police investigated, and they realised this key is most likely to a room in the apartment complex that Megan was living in. So they went to her apartment, knocked on the door, she wasn't answering. So it took investigators to kind of basically like get inside to find out next, which is very disturbing what happened. Megan had been SA'd, she had been stabbed 9 times in her neck and her back, and she was also strangled on that evening. Joseph and Megan went back to her apartment. This wasn't an accidental murder, this was almost a rage of some sort. To stab somebody 9 times, strangle them and SA them is extremely brutal, and my thoughts go out to all of the families and the victims in this story. It really is disturbing. I'm so sorry to hear about this. But later on that day, Joseph was basically at his house, his parents' house, when the police came. Obviously they looked through CCTV and realised that he was the last person with her, and he was arrested immediately of the murder of Megan. After the police arrested Joseph, he was taken into the police station and he was sentenced to the minimum of 22 years in prison with life. This was the true story of Megan Newton and Joseph Trevor, one of the most disturbing stories I've ever covered, as well because of all the CCTV footage that really shows all of the in-depth, as you can see, all the in-depth trueness of this story. You can almost watch it unfold, which is so disturbing. And again, for my thoughts to all the families who have had to see this go on, it makes it bring it to life so much more, and it makes it much more disturbing and hard to watch. But that's it guys for this true story. If you want to see more true crime stories, make sure you subscribe to my channel, turn on post notifications. I post true crime stories every single day. So if you are a true crime junkie and you want to keep up with all these stories, I try my best to break down these stories as fast as I can, but without missing out any of the most important details to these crimes. I'll see you guys in the next video. One Friday morning in 2009 in Surrey, England, a body was found inside of a wheelie bin. The rubbish men were just doing their job. They were coming along to take wheelie bins, putting them into the back of their lorries and driving off. But they came across this one wheelie bin which was extremely heavy, and they refused to actually take it. They just said, no, it's too heavy, we're not going to take it, and they carried on to the next house. 3 weeks later, the landlord actually came by and he discovered a human foot hanging out of the wheelie bin. This is the shocking true story of Melanie Warner, a 30-year-old female who was discovered inside of a wheelie bin. This true story will send shivers down your body, so make sure you watch to the very end and hit subscribe if you want to see more true crime videos. Melanie Warner was a 30-year-old South African female, and she was dating a guy called Peter, who was actually German. Melanie and Peter started dating very quickly after they both met. They both were fond of each other. They both kind of fell for each other really, really fast. They both thought that each one was perfect for each other. And in fact, they actually got married very quickly after they started dating. On the outside, this marriage was perfect. No one knew there was any real issues in this marriage. But in fact, the marriage wasn't perfect. If anything, it was far from perfect, because Peter had allegedly had many affairs on Melanie, and multiple times he kept seeing other women all the time behind Melanie's back. And at first she had no idea about it, but it became so frequent that actually Melanie did find out, about one of his recent affairs. In 2006, Melanie actually confronted Peter about one of his recent affairs. They had a huge argument about this affair. Peter was denying everything, and Melanie was confident that she found out about this affair. She was arguing, and they were arguing together for ages, all day long, and nothing really came of it. Peter wasn't agreeing to it, Melanie wasn't backing down, so she decided to go and get some rest. She went back to her bed and put a sleep mask on so she could just kind of forget about it and get some rest, because she was really stressed about this current affair she just found out about. At this point, this is where this story instantly gets crazy, and again, this is very shocking, but whilst Melanie was actually asleep in her bed, Peter must have been so angry that he was accused of having an affair that while she was asleep with her sleeping mask on, he actually came up to her while she was in bed with a griddle pan and actually whacked her around the head while she was asleep. This pan was extremely heavy and did some serious damage to Melanie. But not only that, he then got a plastic bag, put it over Melanie's head, and then put her body in a sleeping bag so no one would know where she was. So at this point, he's just killed his wife with a griddle pan. He's panicking because he doesn't want to get caught with this. You know, he wants to get away with this. He doesn't want anyone to know. He's just put his wife's body in a sleeping bag, and he's just hit her around the head with a griddle pan. Obviously, he's been angry about being accused of having an affair. That's why he's done this. And now he's really starting to panic of where he should put her body and what's he gonna do, which is where this story gets even more twisted. Peter actually went online and ordered a large lockable freezer where he was going to actually plan on keeping Melanie's body in, so the body would stay in one type of place and wouldn't send off smells. Buying a big enough freezer so he could freeze her body so no one would know where she was and she was frozen. Now, of course, neighbors are going to wonder where Melanie is gone. They're going to realize she's not around no more, and a lot of people are going to start questioning where Melanie is gone. So Peter actually thought of a plan to go and tell his neighbors that, do you know what, they split up and she's left the country and they're not really going to see her around no more. That was one of the first things he did after he obviously murdered his wife. He went to his neighbors' houses and just made them aware that they're not going to see Melanie around anymore and she's left the country. That is what he told all of his neighbors. Now, he told his neighbors that Melanie was out of the country and they split up, but he told her friends and her family that she actually had a freak accident, and he tried everything he could do to save her. He tried CPR and nothing was working. So he's told neighbor one thing and then told his friends and family completely different. At this point, Peter was panicking. He didn't know what to tell anyone else. Melanie's family and parents actually were coming back to the UK, or tried coming back to the UK for obviously their daughter's funeral, but Peter had something different in mind. Peter told them not to come to the funeral, and in fact he was actually going to go to them to prove that their daughter had passed away. In fact, what he did was fly out to South Africa to meet Melanie's parents and took an urn with him and told them that she'd been cremated and that she's gone. But this is just crazy because the urn wasn't Melanie. The urn was actually just ash from his barbecue. This story is just sickening and gets even worse from this point onwards. Time went on and Peter carried on living his life. He actually had over 3 years of getting away with this. He carried on, went back to his normal life. I assume he started dating other people. He carried on with his work. He carried on doing everything in his normal life. After he just murdered his wife, his family now are aware and think she's been cremated. Everyone kind of turned weirdly a blind eye to this. Like, no one really questioned anything. In fact, for 3 years straight, no one really knew. But obviously Peter still had her body in the house and needed to do something. And what he did next is sickening. He wanted to move out of this property, but he had a big package which he needed to get rid of, which was obviously Melanie's body. So he decided to actually put this body into the wheelie bin outside of his house. Melanie's body was under this house for over 3 years, and Peter was just praying that if he put this body inside of a wheelie bin, that the bin men would come along as normal, doing their daily routine, and take the body and put it into a landfill, and that would be it. He'd be hands off with the body. No one would ever find out ever again. This went on for 3 years. He kept this body for 3 years and froze it, and decided when he wanted to move out, now was the time to get rid of it, and that was how he did it. He put it in the wheelie bin and prayed that it would get removed. But it didn't get removed, and this is actually what happened. The bin men came along doing their normal routine, doing the bins of the neighborhood, and they refused to take the bin. They refused to take the bin because it was so heavy. They tried putting it, but it was just ridiculously heavy and they didn't have enough time to mess around with bins that were too heavy. So it actually then took 3 weeks after Peter had moved out for the body to be discovered. So not only was the body then in a wheelie bin for 3 weeks, it actually was found by the landlord, who came along 3 weeks later and found Melanie's foot inside of the wheelie bin hanging out. After the body was discovered, obviously the landlord rang the police. The police came along and investigated everything. Keep in mind this was 3 years later, and their first suspect was obviously the partner, Peter. So they went to Peter and kind of questioned him, and he didn't deny it. He actually said it was self-defense. But Peter forgot one major element of self-defense, and that was Melanie actually had a sleeping mask on. So that proved that Peter wasn't acting in self-defense, and Melanie was asleep and was out of her body. He didn't take the sleep mask off of her. He actually left it on the body, and when the police discovered the body, they would have realized that she was asleep in this at the moment that she passed away, and there was no way she was fighting towards Peter. So Peter completely messed up his story and found out straight away that he was lying. When this case obviously went to jury, Peter claimed that he lost the plot and he was acting in self-defense because Melanie hit him with a rolling pin, and he accidentally acted in self-defense and lost the plot, and he claimed it was manslaughter, not murder. After a very tiring court case for Melanie's family and also a long case in general, Peter was found guilty of murder and now has life in jail. This truly is a shocking story of Melanie Warner and how she was for 3 years frozen, and then the way she was left this world was inside of a wheelie bin. It's really disturbing. And I really, my heart does go out for the family. If you want to see more true crime stories, make sure you hit subscribe, as I post every single week.
Is this a police or medical?
My boyfriend is dead.
This woman locked her boyfriend inside of a suitcase and left him there to die overnight. This is the shocking true story of Sarah Boone, and you need to watch this to the very end because this is very, very weird and has a massive twist that you wouldn't expect. Sarah Boone and her boyfriend George Torres had a very rocky relationship. They both had criminal records and they both have history of domestic abuse, and Sarah's boyfriend George Torres was known for cheating on Sarah many times. Sarah Boone was a very controlling woman, and she was determined to take full control back of this relationship after she found out of all of the cheating that Torres had done. And on the night of the 23rd of February 2020, she decided to do exactly that in the most disgusting, shocking, most brutal way ever. The story that Sarah Boone told the police was that night on 23rd of February 2020, her and her boyfriend George Torres was playing a game of hide and seek. They were both very drunk and they decided to play this game because they thought it'd be funny. One would go hide somewhere in the house and the other one would come find them. They were both drunk, intoxicated, and they thought it'd be fun to play a game of hide and seek whilst they were both drunk. She told the police that this was just a fun game. It was just something they decided to do whilst they were having drinks together, and it would be more fun because they were both drunk. So this is exactly what she told the police that happened on the 23rd of February 2020. Sarah supposedly said she hid in the shower for a very long time and she couldn't find her boyfriend anywhere in the house. And she said it would be kind of funny if he could try and hide inside of a suitcase. That was her story. She said that he was trying to get inside this suitcase because it was funny and he wanted to see if he could fit inside the suitcase. She wanted to see, in fact, if he could fit inside the suitcase. So her boyfriend willingly got into the suitcase to see if he could actually fit in there. This is what Sarah said happened. He got straight into the suitcase and went along with it to see if he could actually fit and hide inside the suitcase. Sarah also said that the zipper on the suitcase was broken, so she used a paper clip to hold the suitcase together, you know, just in case if he got stuck for some reason, he'd be able to get out of the suitcase. She then told police that it'd be more funny if, in fact, she actually left him inside the suitcase just for a little bit, just to get the game a bit more intense. This is what she told police. She said she left him in a suitcase for a bit as it'd make the game a bit more fun, a bit more lively, and you know, she just kind of did it as a joke. She then told police she then went upstairs and actually fell asleep because she was too drunk. Like I said previously before, she said she'd been drinking, they'd both been drinking that night, and she completely forgot that she actually locked him in the suitcase. She went upstairs for a rest and she actually fell asleep and left her boyfriend inside of the suitcase. In the morning when she woke up, she realized that she didn't know where her boyfriend was. So she went downstairs and realized and remembered that in fact she actually locked her boyfriend inside the suitcase and he's been there all night long. She started panicking and wondering, obviously he should still be alive, right? So she unzipped the suitcase and George was unresponsive. He wasn't replying and he seemed dead straight away. He must have lost suffocation overnight and couldn't breathe and just passed away in this suitcase. Now, instead of calling the police, she actually called her ex-husband to come and help her. She didn't ring an ambulance or ring the police, she rang her ex-husband to come and help her in this situation. When her ex-husband came to the house, he said that she needs to call the police straight away because he came in, saw the body inside the suitcase, and he told Sarah that she needs to ring the police and an ambulance immediately. She did in fact then actually call 911 and told them everything that had just happened. She was very weirdly calm, and this is exactly what she said to the 911 operator.
Is this a police or medical?
My boyfriend is dead.
Okay, send the line for the fire department. Do not hang up.
No, tell me exactly what happened there.
My boyfriend and I were playing last night, and I put him in a case and we were playing, and like kind of hide and seek kind of thing. So I fell asleep and I woke up and he was dead in the suitcase. So I don't know what happened.
She was very calm about the situation. She said, you know, it was just a mistake. It was an accident. She completely forgot about, you know, locking her boyfriend in the suitcase. And that was because the reason she was so calm is because all of that was an actual lie. That's what she told the police what happened, but police later discovered the actual dark truth of what really happened, and this is shocking and you're not going to believe this. When she went into the police, they obviously questioned her and they actually got a warrant to search her mobile phone, just to see if there was anything on any evidence that they could use in this case, to see if her story actually did match what happened. So the police got a warrant to search Sarah Boone's phone, and what they found was disgusting. On her phone were 2 videos that actually showed the real truth of what happened that night. And I can tell you, it was nothing like what she told the police. In fact, it was 100 times worse and is really sickening. These 2 videos on her phone were actually Sarah Boone videoing her suffocating her boyfriend, Torres. And she actually recorded it on 2 videos, which these videos are heartbreaking. You can hear in the video, as you can hear here.
I'm breathing.
That's on you.
Sarah, I can't breathe.
It's on you.
Sarah.
You can hear him saying, you know, he's suffocating, he needs to get out, he can't breathe, he needs air. I'm not going to play the full length of these videos because they are honestly horrible, and I don't want to share that on this video because it's just not morally right to show somebody's last moments and begging to get out of a suitcase. It is honestly horrible. And these are the videos that actually were found on Sarah Boone's phone. Throughout the video, she is heard saying, the reason I'm doing this to you is because you cheat on me, you deserve this, it's your fault you're in the suitcase, you shouldn't have got in the suitcase, you're gonna stay in the suitcase, and it's completely on him. All of this is happening because of him. And that's what she kept saying throughout the video, whilst he was begging for his life to get out of this suitcase. Begging, pleading, he can't breathe, he needs to get out. She was there laughing, videoing it. 2 videos she took on this phone, laughing about her boyfriend who is suffocating inside of the suitcase that she used to use for her old clothes. Not only did she video him, she kept telling him that he needs to shut up, he needs to stay quiet. This is gonna happen whether he likes it or not. And honestly, the video is very, very truly shocking. Now, when the police saw this, they saw the 2 videos, they knew instantly that this wasn't what Sarah Boone said. They wasn't playing hide and seek. They wasn't doing anything that she said at all. And they charged her straight away with 2nd-degree murder. The police said this was definitely homicide. He was inside this suitcase for over 11 hours. And he had bruises and black eyes, and his body was completely battered. What makes this story even more sickening is when she did in fact get questioned by the police, they actually released the full interview, and she was saying, still going with the story, that she didn't know that he was panicking, she didn't know that he was actually suffering. She basically was trying to get out of this whole thing. I'm going to show you a clip right here of her basically being interviewed by the police, and you'll see for yourself how sickening some of the things she says is.
But why is he saying I can't breathe, and why is he pushing on it as if he can't get out?
I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like, I don't know, like, what you want me to tell you.
You're laughing in the beginning, and then in the end it sounds kind of like a...
No, it's not malicious.
Well, saying fuck you.
It's not malicious.
This was the sickening true crime story of Sarah Boone and her partner Torres, and my thoughts go out to anybody who was affected by this and their families. This was disgusting. She planned this. She did this purposely to get back at her boyfriend for cheating on her, and she wanted to take back control as she was a controlling person, and she did exactly that, and she was found guilty of second-degree murder. If you want to see more true crime stories, make sure you subscribe to my channel, turn on post notifications. I post videos every single day telling you guys some of the most craziest true stories and documentaries. So I'll see you guys in the next video. This ex-army soldier made a phone call to 999 and told them that he just murdered 2 people, but you won't believe the reason why he committed this murder. This is one of the most craziest true crime stories I've ever covered, so make sure you watch to the very end. This is a true crime story of Colin Reeves, an ex-army soldier. On the 21st November 2021, Colin Reeves sat on the bottom of his stairs and started crying in tears of the crime he just committed. Now, Colin was believed to be in severe pain and was in a very bad place of his army service. He left the army 4 years ago, and he always said he had flashbacks and bad memories and horror stories of all the things he saw when he was in the army, especially when he's in Afghanistan. He claims that all the things he can still see in his mind, from all the bad moments to bad visualizations, kept playing on his mind all the time, and he kept having flashbacks of things he saw when he was fighting out in Afghanistan. Now, at the same time, there was also a COVID pandemic, so there was massive lockdowns, so he couldn't really go out and do any work, so he was worried that he wasn't going to be able to provide for his family, his children and his wife. So that was also playing on his mind a lot too. Quite a few times around his house, he was heard having arguments with his neighbours. His neighbours were always arguing with Colin, and Colin was also arguing with them a lot of the time. And there's a lot of witnesses who also heard Colin arguing multiple times, supposedly, with his neighbours. The reason why they were arguing, supposedly, was because of parking. Now, the parking situation really got to Colin. And in fact, they had a massive argument over a period of time, continuously over parking. The reasons why is because where Colin lived, Colin Lee's lived, his 2 neighbours, Jennifer Chappell and Stephen Chappell, also had a similar house to them next door, and they all had one allocated parking spot outside the front of their house. So each house had one parking spot, and that generically means, you know, in the UK anyway, that you don't have 2 cars because you can't fit them there. It would be disrespectful towards your neighbours to have more because you'll start blocking them in. Well, in fact, Colin's neighbours, Jennifer Chappell, actually got 2 cars. So there was an ongoing debate for a while. A lot of the time, Colin was really taking this quite personal. He was really angry at the fact that, you know, they got a second car. It was disrespectful. Now, although she didn't purposely park it in his spot, his house, she parked it just enough so he could get out, but not enough to maneuver properly. So Jennifer Chappell wasn't intentionally trying to wind up Colin Reeves, but she was disrespecting him and his house and his family by making it harder to get his car in and out. You know, like I said, there's 1 car per house, she has 2, so it's a disrespectful thing to the neighbours, and Colin Reeves was not happy about this. Now, over time, in fact months, the tensions grew and grew and grew. Every day it was getting worse. There was actually witnesses heard that on the 10 days previous to the crime that he committed, he was heard abusing and shouting at his neighbours. There was a lot of people who heard this over the period of time. But on the 21st of November, he decided that enough was enough, and he was about to commit a very dangerous and horrible crime, which you're not going to believe. Now, although he was annoyed at his neighbours, he was more than annoyed. He was actually very, very frustrated. In fact, he wanted to kill his neighbours over this situation. He was so triggered over this parking situation that it'd been going on for so long, and he wanted to murder them. He actually wanted to murder his own neighbours because of this parking situation. So he set out on the 21st of November 2021 to murder his neighbors. That is his plan, that was what he wanted to do, and that was what he was going to commit. On the day of the murder, Colin Reeves actually took his children to some Christmas lights. They were actually war memorial Christmas lights. So he took them there for the day, kind of like the later evening, he watched the lights turn on with his children, he came back home, and around 9 p.m. that same evening was when he was going to commit this crime. Now, using the skills he learned in his elite commando course when he was in the army, he slipped into his next door neighbor's garden with an actual dagger he got from the army. It wasn't just a normal knife, he actually had a dagger that he got from the army, and he was planning on using this dagger to kill and murder his neighbors. Again, this was all over a parking route that had been going on and on and on for ages and ages and ages. At least that's what everyone thought it was over. But supposedly it wasn't, which I'm going to get to it later on in this story. So Colin Reeves went into the neighbor's house. Their 2 children, they had 2 sons, Stephen Chappell and Jennifer Chappell had 2 young sons. One was 5 and one was 6. They were upstairs asleep at the time, but that didn't stop Colin Reeves. He went into this house, he went to his next door neighbor's garden, snuck in through the house, and he actually in fact stabbed Stephen Chappell and his wife Jennifer Chappell, and he left straight away. As soon as he stabbed them, he left straight away and went straight back to his house. After he went back to his house, it was supposed that he told his girlfriend straight away. At least that's what said. That's at least what said that he did. And later on, he actually called 999. And he basically confessed to his murder. He literally rang 999 and told them everything that he'd just done. He was sat on the bottom of his stairs. He was very sad. He had tears down his face, and he just realized what he actually done. His frustration got to him. All these months built up of a parking had tallied up, and he committed a crime that he said was kind of out of his control. So he rang the police, he rang 999, and this is what he said.
The neighbour's been stabbed by who?
By me.
By you?
Yes.
Right, okay. And where are they? Are they in their house?
Yes.
All right, stay on the line for me, okay? How bad are the injuries?
They've both been stabbed a couple of times.
Several times. All right, stay on the line for me, okay?
Now, when Reeves was taken into custody, he gave them his military service number and said that this crime he committed was an operation. He said that he doesn't remember the killing at all. In fact, the reason he did this was because of the Christmas lights he went to earlier that day, and it reminded him of flashes from the war. He kept getting flashbacks from the war, and this was what supposedly reminded him bad flashbacks were coming back, and he claims that he keeps getting these flashbacks and they're horror in his life, they're scaring him, and this is what made him commit that murder. He said that once he was at these Christmas lights, he keeps seeing flares everywhere, and in fact it wasn't obviously flares, it was the Christmas lights, but he kept thinking it was flares. Again, flashbacks from his past in the army in Afghanistan. So it seems like he didn't actually murder his neighbors over parking, it was kind of a flashback. He's saying he was out of control, he couldn't handle it, he kept getting bad flashbacks. He has post-traumatic experiences from the war, and that was the reasons why he killed his neighbors. But in fact, actually, when he went into the police station, they investigated him. He had 2 forensics psychiatrists basically analyze him and see if that was actually the real reason. And they actually confirmed that he wasn't suffering post-traumatic experiences, and he knew full well what he was doing. He was actually diagnosed with mild depression from obviously previous experiences. But the reasons he was supposedly given as to why he did this and why he was out of control, they ruled out and said he wasn't experiencing that and he was just having mild depression. The Crown Prosecution Service basically investigated everything into what he was saying and concluded that he knew what he was doing, he was fully in control. They wasn't saying that he didn't see flashbacks, but they were saying that the flashbacks wasn't the reason why he committed this murder. He was full in control of what he was doing. All the tests came back, like I said, to kind of say that he knew what he was doing. Again, this is what the reports say online. Again, no one really knows what was going through his head, whether or not he was seeing flashbacks, no one really knows for sure. My thoughts go out to all the families who was involved in this, and obviously his girlfriend as well, and anyone who's related to this case whatsoever, because this is such a bad experience and a bad story, and I feel really sorry for anybody who was involved. But yeah, this is very, very saddened story. Then Colin Reeves actually did get sentenced to life in jail, and he has a minimum of 38 years in prison. This was one of the most craziest stories I've ever covered, and like I said, my thoughts go out to all the families and all the victims who were involved in this story. Guys, if you want to see more true crime stories, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I post every 2 days, all the deepest stories, all the craziest stories that go on. And yeah guys, I'll see you in the next video. This is the fake Barbie girl who committed murder in the most disturbing way possible, and you won't believe why she did it. This is the true story of Abigail White, who was a 24-year-old girl who lived in Bristol, United Kingdom. Now, Abigail was notoriously known for being what she calls herself a self-dubbed Barbie girl. Bleached blonde hair, kind of big body parts, everything you need basically Barbie has. That's what she intended on being like. Now, not only was she a self-dubbed Barbie girl, she was actually a OnlyFans model. So she basically did OnlyFans for a living, and she had told people that she'd made over £50,000 a year. She was making a lot of money from basically selling photos of herself online, videos, doing adult work to all of the subscribers who are OnlyFans. So that's what she did for a living, and that kind of goes with a Barbie girl name. She kind of wanted to become a Barbie girl, cam girl, effectively, and that's what she did for work. Now, while she was doing all of this adult work, she had a boyfriend, and her boyfriend was called Bradley Lewis. This was the partner of Abigail White. They actually had 3 children together. Bradley Lewis has 4 children, but they have 3 children together, and they were in what seemed to be a long relationship. However, things came out that in fact this relationship wasn't actually healthy at all. In fact, it was very, very unhappy. It was revealed that Abigail would be actually physically abusing and attacking Bradley throughout the relationship, trying to scare him, trying to fearmonger him, potentially blackmailing. A lot of things came out, which she actually admitted later on in the story of doing to him. So she would basically try and scare him in multiple different ways, because she never believed him. He would always go out and she would never believe where he went, or he would never really tell her. So the only way she would basically get information out of him was to scare him and threaten him and do really vile acts of disturbingness to try and just basically get her own boyfriend to speak to her. I'm going to play you some voice notes right now, and viewer discretion is advised. These are voice notes that were found on Abigail's phone after she committed the crime, but it makes sense to play them now just so you can get some context. This is how she described her own relationship with her boyfriend Bradley. I'm going to play it right now because she basically tells you herself how she kind of acts and how their relationship is.
The word that comes out of that boy's mouth. I have to beat the living daylights out of him for him to tell me the truth, and he still don't tell me the truth. He only tells me the truth when he thinks I'm gonna kill him. Like when I get a knife out, like when I stab him, like, oh, I just don't get this kid. But obviously, I have no limit when I get angry, and like obviously he said that I need help with that because people are generally saying to me, one of you are gonna end up dead, like. And I fully believe that I'm quite capable of killing him if he hurts me again. Or I'm gonna end up being in prison.
So Abigail sent these voice notes on her phone, which obviously, like I said, was recently discovered by the police after she was arrested. But she basically sent these voice notes to a friend to describing how she's not mentally stable to be able to be in a relationship, really. Like, she can't control her anger. She's probably gonna like kill somebody. Like, she cannot physically do life how it's meant to be done. Like, she has anger issues, she clearly has some problems, and her boyfriend Bradley was clearly aware of this too, because she said that they both need to work on it. So they were in this relationship where it seemed like Bradley was getting really badly attacked, potentially even stabbed, to be scared, and he wasn't happy at all. In fact, he actually wanted to break up with Abigail, which is where this story gets a bit deep. So not too long after these voice notes, Bradley and Abigail were going to the pub. They were going to the pub, or like a restaurant pub, with one of Abigail's friends, one of her pals. So they went to the pub, and basically they were just having like drinks and stuff. They wasn't really on best terms, but Bradley wanted to break up with Abigail that night. That was the plan of him. He wanted to go to the pub and basically leave her. He kind of wanted to put her down like gently in a subtle way, because he was scared that if he left her, she would kill herself. In fact, actually, when Abigail left the table to maybe get a drink or go to the toilet, he actually told Abigail's friend that he wanted to leave her, but he was too scared to leave her because he knows that she would probably kill herself if he does. So he's trying to ask Abigail's friend for some advice, like, how can I leave this crazy girl? That's what he was kind of basically saying, and yeah, things kind of went out of control from here. So it was Friday the 25th of March, and they were in this pub, and they were drinking, and Bradley obviously had then told Abigail that, you know, he wasn't happy, and she started getting really drunk. She drank a bottle of wine, she drank a Jaeger bomb and 2 rum and cokes. So she was pretty hammered, she was pretty smashed and drunk. And this is where she then started getting a bit more aggressive. The aggressiveness in her started coming out. She actually threw a face at Bradley. She actually threw a drink at Bradley's face after she'd found out that he told her pal that he wanted to leave her. And this was the final straw for Abigail. She had had enough. She could not control her anger anymore. And she basically, like she said in the voice notes, was planning on just completely getting rid of Bradley forever. Now, again, this girl was only 24 years old, and her boyfriend, they have 3 children together, but that didn't stop her from what she was about to do. She was committed to doing this next act of disturbingness, and there was nothing going to stop her. So around about 7:50 p.m. on Friday, 25th of March, they were leaving the pub. They had had enough. Abigail had just thrown a drink into Bradley's face, out of anger. So they're both fuming right now, they're both angry, they both want to go home, and Bradley's last words to Abigail's friend who was at the pub with him was, "I'm gonna be dead when I get home." That was his last words that he told Abigail's pal. And unfortunately, that was a reality. That this was the last moment that anybody would see Bradley Lewis alive, pretty much, because Abigail White had full intentions of murdering Bradley that night. And that's exactly what she tried to do. But she did it in a weird way. She didn't just murder him, she tried blaming it on him, which I'm going to explain now. So when they got back home, Abigail and Bradley were heard arguing and screaming in the house by neighbours. A few moments later, just minutes after they got home, Abigail was heard running into her garden screaming because police would not answer the phone. She'd rang 999 and basically told them that her boyfriend is dying, basically, on the floor. The neighbours came round to discover that Bradley was on his back. He'd been stabbed in the heart, and he was basically like passing out. He was dying on the floor right there and then. And Abigail was not telling the truth. She was telling everybody that he'd stabbed himself, and again, she was trying to get away with this whole thing. And obviously the police turned up, they arrested Abigail, or they took her into question, and she told the police, like I said, that he stabbed himself. They had arguments, they were both drinking, and yeah, they both wasn't happy in a relationship, and he actually stabbed himself. Bradley Lewis was rushed into hospital with severe stab wound into his heart, and the next day he unfortunately was pronounced dead. He didn't survive the stabbing, what Abigail White had just done to him. Later on, Abigail was questioned and quizzed by the police multiple times, and finally she actually admitted that she did stab him. She tried murdering him. She wanted to scare him. That was her word. She wanted to scare him because he was leaving her. So this was a completely twisted story. She did not want Bradley to leave him, and there was no way she was going to allow that to happen, so she stabbed him. I think she didn't mean to probably kill him, but you know, stabbing somebody in the heart is a pretty good shot at killing somebody. So regardless, you know, and also in the past, in the voice notes, you heard that she already planned this. She already knew that she was going to eventually kill him. In those voice notes, she told her friends that she's going to kill him one day. She can't control herself. And I think Bradley Lewis also knew deep down as well, one day something bad was going to happen. Either she would kill herself or he was going to get killed. And I think he was a bit scared to leave her because of this reason and exactly what had happened. On October the 21st, 2022, just a couple of days before this video was posted, she was actually sentenced in prison to life with the minimum of 18 years. So Abigail was found guilty of murder, and like I said, she would now spend the rest of her life, or minimum of 18 years in jail. Some argue that 18 years is not enough because she's only 24, which means she's going to be out in her 40s or 50s and back to her life. but others argued that she's not mentally stable. She knew she was going to do this, and she also herself knew what she was going to do. This is the crazy story of Abigail White, the fake South Dub Barbie girl murderer who murdered her boyfriend and had the children together. It's a very sad story. My thoughts and prayers go to out all of the families, all the victims who are affected by this story. My heart goes out for you. I really am sorry to hear about all of this. But if you guys want to hear more true crime stories and things that happen in the world, which is just crazy, make sure you subscribe, as all I post on this channel is true crime stories once or twice a week, which you guys seem to like to enjoy. This woman took the life of 7 premature babies while she was working as a nurse at her local hospital. She managed to get away with doing this for years without never being caught. And the big question is how did she get away with this, and why did she do it? She has now become one of the most biggest serial killers in the United Kingdom, and I'm going to tell you all about this crazy true crime story, so make sure you watch to the very end. And as always, in every case there is always a mystery, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any more videos. This is Lucy Letby. She was born in January 1990 in the United Kingdom. As she was growing up, she came on to study nursing, and she actually went to Chester University in 2011 to study nursing, and actually qualified at the end of 2011 to be a qualified nurse. In January 2012, she joined Chester Hospital as a brand new qualified nurse, and she came along to help with premature babies and babies that need additional support after they're born. So she was brought to this hospital as a newly qualified nurse, and she was there to help out everything with premature babies and just a really good nurse in general. Lucy Letby was a normal person. She had a normal job, normal friends, normal family. Everything about her was just so normal. You wouldn't suspect anything about this woman. You know, she's a nurse, she's in a hospital, she helps save lives. That's at least what everyone thinks she was doing. She was so normal that actually she managed to slip under the radar in the serious crimes she was committing, because nobody thought she would do it. Nobody thought she had that in her. Nobody thought what she was about to do she could be capable of. But in reality, she was evil, and she was actually doing stuff behind the scenes that managed to slip under the radar for many, many years. In 2015, Chester Hospital actually had a very significant rise in the passing of babies, specifically in the mortality of babies in that section. Compared to all of the other hospitals around the area, Chester Hospital had a significant rise. Something wasn't going right at this hospital, and in 2015 the alarm bell started ringing. Why was Chester Hospital having more babies unfortunately pass away and having these tragic events happen at this hospital? What is happening inside this hospital, and who is responsible for it? Or is it just you know, something that magically happened? Like, something was really suspicious about this, and it took a long time for them to figure out what was going on. The hospital team tried figuring out what was happening. Like, how could these babies keep passing away? What was the common denominator between all this? Is there something going wrong with the machine, the equipments? Like, is the hospital doing a good job? They all doubted themselves. They all had many questions, and nobody knew in the hospital. Even nobody, the parents, nobody knew what was going on at Chester Hospital. Although this name was coming around the hospital about how bad it was, how it's dangerous, and nobody still, until that day, knew why. Until one day, things changed for the worst. Because this was a massive concerning thing going on in this hospital, the hospitals came together and tried to pinpoint what was going wrong here. And they managed to look through all the books, all the routines, all of the shifts that these nurses were working, and they found one thing in common. And that was, at the death of each baby, the time of each baby passing unfortunately away, there was one nurse always on shift, and that was Lucy Letby. She was always there at every time a baby would unfortunately pass away. So they put 2 and 2 together, and the hospital team and staff actually accused Lucy Letby of doing something malicious towards these babies. Now, of course, Lucy Letby at the time denied all these allegations, said she would never dream of doing this. Most of her friends backed her up and said there's no way she could do this. In fact, they actually all believed her in some elements. You know, they literally said how she could never do this. And Lucy Letby denied all allegations, and denied everything, all the wrongdoings, and said it was not her, this must just be a coincidence, and none of this is to do with her whatsoever. Lucy Letby actually in fact accused and blamed the hospital for the reasons of the passing of these babies. She said it was nothing to do with her, she was just doing her job. It's actually the hospital's fault why these babies are unfortunately passing away. And because of this, they basically believed her. They believed that Lucy was a qualified nurse. She would never do anything to put any babies in danger. She worked specifically on the premature ward, so all these babies had health conditions or were premature, and nobody ever thought Lucy Letby would do something so cruel to any babies. And that is when things then turned for the worse for Lucy Letby. In 2018, she actually got arrested on suspicion of trying to attack children in her company while she was working at the Chester Hospital. After she was arrested, the police searched her house and found some very disturbing notes that she had been writing while she was working at Chester Hospital. Some of these notes say that she hates herself. She deserves this. She did what everybody thought she was doing. These notes were basically her confession, almost. That she was in fact actually involved in the passing of these babies. After they found this, they rearrested her in 2019 on suspicion of actually murdering babies. After she was arrested in 2018, it was believed that she was supposedly put onto bail, and then she was rearrested again in November 2022 and actually charged with the passing away of all of these babies. They basically said that this was Lucy and they have enough evidence to prove. So once they arrested her, the big question is, what did she actually do? How was she getting away with this for so long? What was she doing to slip under the radar and make this hospital have their cases of premature babies passing away so high? Well, she did something the most evil person can ever think of. She was actually pumping extra oxygen into premature babies. She was overfeeding babies, and some babies she even actually injected insulin into them to make them fully pass away. Lucy Letby was a trusted nurse. She was supposed to be looking after these premature babies, but instead she was pumping oxygen, extra oxygen into these premature babies. She was overfeeding them. And not only that, she was actually injecting insulin into these babies, all under the radar for many years. In fact, she was actually convicted with killing 7 of these precious little babies. Later on in the investigation, and as she was going to court, the police and the court actually found out that she was trying to take another 6 more lives of these babies. She already took 7 and she was trying to take 6 more. That is 13 premature babies that she was trying to get rid of. This was a trusted nurse, a nurse who was supposed to be looking after these babies, but she completely went against her obligatory to look after these babies. People put trust in her with premature babies to look after them, and she completely went against everything and did something extremely evil. And even to this day, it's a mystery. Nobody knows why she did this. She didn't say why she did it. Nobody knows the actual intention as to why she did this. She has refused to say anything about the situation. In fact, in August 2023, not too long ago from making this video, she was actually sentenced and she did not even turn up to a court hearing sentencing. That's how much this is a mystery. She didn't even want to turn up to her own sentencing, and she got life in prison. Now in the UK, it's very rare that anybody gets a full life sentence. Well, Lucy Letby got 2 full life sentences in the United Kingdom and is now known as one of the most dangerous serial killers in the United Kingdom. And the worst part about this case for many people is the way she's being treated inside a prison. Most serial killers across the world will get handed a stone bed, no curtains, literally to rot in jail for the crimes they did. Whilst Lucy Letby has got this room. She's got curtains, bedding, toys, effectively, pictures. She's got everything. It almost seems like a life of luxury. She gets to go to classes. She gets to go shopping inside a prison to feel nice about herself, buy new clothes. She gets bedding, nice mattresses. Yet she took the life of 6 premature babies, and now she's being treated like this in prison. Do you guys think this is fair? Because I personally don't. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment below. And as always, with every case, there's always a mystery. So make sure you subscribe to me so don't miss any more future true crime videos. And I just want to say my heart and prayers go out to anybody who was affected by this case. Friends, family of the victims, the babies. It's such a sad, sad case. You know, Lucy Letby denies all wrongdoing. She said this isn't her. Some of her friends say it's not even her who did it. Some people say it is. Regardless if it's true or false, those poor babies lost their life to inadequate service, inadequate care in hospital. And regardless who's to blame, those babies will never live their life. It's a really sad case.